All right. Again, happy Friday. Here we are, Temple, Buddha Center. Let's start like we normally do, short period of bell meditation. So wherever you are behind your avatar, and do keep in mind, meditation does nothing for avatars. An avatar can sit there for years and not gain a thing. So, person behind the avatar, get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, the idea, just focus on the sound of the bell. Really practice some deep listening. Get your open heart, open mind ready to absorb some Dharma today. Chances are you're going to get distracted. When it happens, I just want you to gently remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be focusing on the sound of the bell, and just go back to doing that. Then there'll be that little pause at after the end of the short meditation. I'll do the 3 recitations, and then on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. Sure I didn't miss anybody? Nope. All right. So, again, Friday, Temple, Buddha Center. Yay. Good to see everybody today. So today we're going to talk about three things: opinion, choice, and commitment. There's a little bit of like a connective tissue, if you will, between those three things. So start out about opinions. We all have them. Each of us are prone to making decisions based on our opinions. And, we have to be truthful, right? The opinion, it could be based in appropriate view. It could be a factual opinion. But we must also accept that it is equally likely that whatever our opinion is, it may be arising from some delusion or from some misinformation that we're holding on to. But still, they are our opinions. And we accept as Buddhists that these opinions will change given internal and external causal factors or influences. Things like information we get, knowledge that we work on, experiences that we have. These things should change our opinions and hopefully change those from opinions to actual choices or commitments that we're going to talk about here too. So we must transform our opinions into choices into commitments in order to effectively engage with life and with this Buddhist practice, this noble path that we've chosen to walk. Now, what I'm about to say next is probably going to be a shock to all of you, but people have opinions on almost every topic. I know I do. I hope they're not all opinions. I hope most of them are facts, but hey, I'm sure I have some opinions left over too. Now, there are some people, they're going to defend their opinion by saying, whoa, wait a minute. This is not an opinion. This is a fact. This is a truth. This is not an opinion. But we have to be mindful and aware that for many people, their own opinions are truths. To them, those are synonymous terms. An opinion and a truth seem to be the same thing to them. And it doesn't take much experience to know that some of the opinions that people put forward certainly are not truths. Well, the concept of moral truth, the obligation for our thoughts and actions to parallel our voiced belief and of physical truth. That truth is dependent on experiential verification. These are both pragmatic views. So let's touch on that. Moral truth. This is basically saying, if you're a Buddhist, act like a Buddhist. It doesn't matter if you're alone or with a group of people or one person or whatever. That's when you're engaging a moral truth. A physical truth, these are truths that we come to through our practice and through our experience that we can say, I know this is a truth because I experienced it. So if somebody says, well, that's just your opinion. No, it's not my opinion, it's my experience. That can add a little more gravitas to it too. So these are both pragmatic views of opinion, if you will. But both views are at risk of being the causal factor of someone speaking to create truth. You can try to create a moral truth or a physical truth, and this happens quite a bit. A person can speak what they believe to be or what they want to be a truth, even if all around them is all this proof that their speech is false. But they'll still try to say, no, I'll say this over and over, and hopefully it becomes truth, or at least becomes truth in some people's eyes. There are instances when someone may be speaking truthfully, but they may be saying something that you believe to be a lie or even a delusion. You must set aside opinion, this is not easy to do, and engage both with the intent to get an appropriate view. So, This is where personal responsibility comes into play. You look at these things, and if somebody was to say to you, well, that's just your opinion, that's when you want to take a moment and, is it an opinion? Do I have an appropriate view of this? Do I think my opinion is a truth or a fact when it's actually not? That's our responsibility, to know the difference, to be able to discern the difference. What one experiences as truth, others experience as an opinion if it doesn't agree with their truth. So it's another time when opinions can kind of get in the way. Because you have a truth, somebody else has an opinion, it doesn't agree with your truth, so you automatically want to discard it. No opinion that we can have is inherently true or inherently true to all people. Coming to terms with the fact that truth can be a product of each individual's experiencing of their own ideals can make it difficult. So again, we have to take the time, we have to use that mindfulness, we have to use that appropriate view. You have to maybe do a little thinking, a little contemplating. So we have an opinion. Well, from opinion, what we want to do is move on to choice. Opinion is largely based in habitual reactivities and perceptions. That's what our opinions usually arise from. And some people want to just stick. They have this habitual reactivity that it's their opinions and nobody else's are right, and their opinions are the ones that should be listened to. But choice, as opposed to opinion, is effectively based on knowledge and experience. So this is when you say, wait a minute, maybe my opinion isn't right. Gain some knowledge about it. Gain some experience with it. And then you can say, oh, no, this is a choice that I'm making. Choice transforms to truth. And this would be a fully realized truth for you after experiences happen to you that corroborate your choice. Truth transforms into commitment. Once we know that something works, that something's right, that something's effective, that it's a truth, then it transforms into commitment. And all human beings also hold commitments. I got an example here. So this comes from a book called Consider the Lobster. It's by David Foster Wallace. Let me type this out because you might be interested in finding it. It's called Consider the Lobster. It's by David Foster Wallace. So it's a book of essays. And in this particular essay is one entitled Authority and Usage, a Review. He did a lot of book reviews, and that's what this comes from. So here he's doing a review for a new book on language and on the language arts. And in the midst of the article, there arises this argument about commitment and how some try to force their commitments, particularly morally based commitments, onto others. And it creatively describes the ideal of the middle path, of the Eightfold Path. There's recognition that we all have opinions and that we all make choices, and realization that we can commit to two seemingly opposite positions without weakening either one. Now, as I've said many times, and I know there's some new folks here today or folks that haven't been in a while, the Dharma doesn't only come from the sutras and the legacy teachings and these Buddhist texts. If we're going to engage the Dharma in the West, we have to also see the Dharma that arises in the West. And this is just another example of that. So again, this comes from Consider the Lobster by David Foster Wallace. This came out in 2005, and it's from his essay, Authority and American Usage, a Review. Argument. Oh, by the way, this is David Foster Wallace's words. Argument. As of 4 March 1999, the question of defining human life in utero is hopelessly vexed. That is, given our best present medical and philosophical understandings of what makes something not just a living organism but a person, there is not a way to establish at just what point during gestation a fertilized ovum becomes a human being. This conundrum, together with the basically inarguable soundness of the principle, quote, when in irresolvable doubt about whether something is a human being or not, it is better not to kill it, unquote, it appears to me to require any reasonable American to be pro-life. At the same time, however, the principle, when in irresolvable doubt about something, I have neither the legal nor the moral right to tell another person what to do about it, especially if that person feels that she or he is not in doubt, is an unassailable part of the democratic pact we Americans all make with one another. A pact in which each adult citizen gets to be an autonomous moral agent, and this principle appears to me to require any reasonable American to be pro-choice. Excuse me just a moment. I guess I didn't turn the sound off. Thank you. So to go on, this reviewer is thus, as a private citizen and an autonomous agent, both pro-life and pro-choice. It is not an easy or comfortable position to maintain. Every time someone I know decides to terminate a pregnancy, I am required to believe simultaneously that she is doing the wrong thing and that she has every right to do it. Plus, of course, I have both to believe a pro-life plus pro-choice stance is the only really coherent one, and to restrain myself from trying to force that position on other people whose ideological or religious convictions seem, to me, to override reason and yield a, in my opinion, wacko dogmatic position. This restraint has to be maintained even when somebody's, to me, wacko dogmatic position appears, to me, to reject the very democratic tolerance that is keeping me from trying to force my position on him or her. It requires me not to press or argue or retaliate even when somebody calls me Satan's minion or just another shithead male, which forbearance represents the really outer and tooth-grinding limits of my own personal democratic spirit, unquote. Keep in mind here that Mr. Wallace is not speaking of political democracy. He's speaking of democratic spirit. A democratic spirit is one that combines rigor and humility, passionate conviction, plus a sedulous respect for the convictions of others. It's pluralism. We've talked about pluralism earlier in the year. This ideal has parallels to a foundational ideal in engaged Dharma. Here it is, pluralism. The ideal that you can be committed to a worldview and accept without judgment that someone holds an entirely different worldview. The position Mr. Wallace came to regarding abortion mirrors the very one that I have held for many years, way before he wrote this in 2005. But I will say, this is the first time I ever saw anybody put it in writing and actually put forth a, let's call it what he said, an argument for it. We each have to make moral choices. It's kind of what being a human being, especially being a Buddhist, is all about, making, good moral choices. And we base these choices that we're going to make on our experiences and our knowledge. We're basing it on our choices that have become commitments. We choose to act a certain way, we see it works for us, and it becomes a commitment. We do not have the human right to denigrate the choices of others or to force our commitments on others. You might be thinking at this moment, well, it's kind of like, seems like you're just avoiding the issue. You either believe in abortion or you don't. Black and white. Left or right. Well, that's not the case at all. I firmly believe, and I'm saying this, I firmly believe that abortion is the inappropriate, the unwholesome choice for me. And like David Foster Wallace, I am committed to that choice. That is my commitment. Equally, though, I firmly believe, as does David Foster Wallace, that I do not have any moral right to make that choice for others. All I can do is be an example they may choose to follow. And I just want to stop here. I have had more than one person come to me about abortion, and I've spoken to them about this very thing. And it makes it sometimes more difficult for the person asking for an opinion or guidance because they're expecting that black or white answer. It either is or it isn't. But remember here, we got to step back onto the middle path. We have to subtract opinions. We have to make sure that we don't go with our opinions because they may likely be wrong. So we have to make choices, and then we have to make those choices into commitments. Those commitments, whether they are on the left or the right side of a path, these are individual commitments. But we want to stay on the middle path by not allowing our commitments to affect how we interconnect and interact with others. So if your commitment is, I am strictly pro-life, strictly, nothing else, pro-life, period, and you encounter somebody that's pro-choice, period, the idea here is you both have opposite commitments, but you should still be able to interact and talk to one another. You still should be able to have that interconnection that we should have as human beings. There is no need for us to defend our commitments. We don't have to stand up on a soapbox and declare to the world why we have a particular commitment. But also, we can't attack the commitments of others. Can we disagree? Absolutely. Can we have a reasoned discussion? Maybe even sometimes a little bordering on the unreasonable discussion. But we don't attack. We're not aggressive with the person that has the opposite commitment. Mr. Wallace's definition of democratic spirit is that it combines rigor and humility, or what he called passionate conviction plus a sedulous or a dedicated and diligent respect for the convictions or commitments of others. It's a very good way to think about it. And he stands in good company with Siddhartha. Now, granted, Siddhartha didn't know anything, probably never even thought about this idea of democracy or democratic spirit or whatever. But Siddhartha did reveal his democratic spirit in how and to whom he offered the Dharma. There has long been a controversy concerning whether or not Siddhartha believed in rebirth. In a long time, this has been a controversy. While the term and its implications arise in the Hindi scriptures and in many Buddhist sutras, Siddhartha chose not to answer the direct questions of his own commitment to it. So we don't know if he believed or didn't believe. What he did is he named it a metaphysical question, an unanswerable question given the knowledge present at the time was unable to answer it, at least definitively. Why then do they refer to it in the early sutras, this idea of rebirth? Well, Siddhartha realized very early his own commitment to belief or disbelief in the concept of rebirth wasn't what was important. Skillfully offering the Dharma in language and concepts that could be recognized and understood by his audience, that was important. Consider the answer to the question about Buddhists and their dietary choices. This is another good example. This idea, eat meat or not eat meat. Buddhist diet. The statement is made from both sides of the discussion that each are rationalizing, it's a great word to try, in order to feel good about their choice. Finding reasons to make their choice look good or feel good to them. What one side experiences as rationalization, though the other experiences as stating facts, or truths, if you will, as they know them. Each individual reveals a commitment. I do, and I don't. Each individual's commitment, though, is not a danger to the commitment of the other. One can sincerely hold the ideal that while they themselves make a commitment to eat meat, it doesn't mean that those that make the opposite commitment are wrong, and vice versa. It's just reality. Some do, some don't. There is no right, there is no wrong. It is reality that within the Buddhist canon and other scriptural texts can be found ample evidence of both sides. Guess what that is? That's the middle path. Walking the middle path is not easy. It is not black and white. We can hold a commitment to an ideal and still treat those that hold a different commitment with respect, loving kindness, and generosity of democratic spirit.